sanding your floors with U-Sand equipment. Congratulations, you've decided to sand and refinish your hardwood floors using patented random orbit floor sanding equipment. Before beginning the process, let's look at the safety features of the equipment you will be using. The U-Sand and U-Sand Pro floor sanders are both random orbit and easy to operate. The units feature a detachable dust bag that first needs to be attached to the unit. First, insert the plastic tube into the vacuum chute on the deck plate. Attach the hook and loop tabs to the handle and frame. Observe the safety notices on the bag itself and the neon orange tag suspended from the handle near the switch. Read the instruction manual before operating any equipment. Never leave the dust bag on the unit when unattended, even for a few minutes. Prior to use, practice removing the dust bag from the unit. Make sure to empty the bag away from your work area and into a metal container away from other flammable materials or rags. Always unplug the unit from the electrical outlet prior to removing the dust bag. Make sure to adjust the dust skirt for maximum dust collection. We also recommend using ear protection when operating the U-Sand. Next, ensure you know how to change the sandpaper on the unit. Always unplug the unit before changing the paper. Lean the machine back until it is parallel with the floor. Press the hook and loop paper discs to the backer pads on the bottom of the unit. To remove the sandpaper, pull on the paper from the edge. Now that you're familiar with the equipment, let's get started. Step 1. Preparation. Remove all furniture, appliances, and floor coverings from the area or areas that you are going to refinish. Thoroughly check the floor for large splinters or nails that have worked their way out over the years and reset them if necessary. To set nails, you will need a nail punch and hammer. Tap the nail head until it is slightly lower than the current board height of the floor. Removing the base shoe and/or baseboard is not necessary because of the unique design of the U-Sand. It allows you to do the edging with the same machine that you are using to sand the floor. To prevent any airborne particles from spreading throughout your home, you may want to apply plastic drop cloths to doorways or adjacent rooms that are currently being refinished. Because of the random orbit design of the U-Sand, it is not necessary to sand the floor in the same direction as the grain of the wood. Therefore, you can sand any size closet, hallway, or room in any direction that you want, and you can achieve excellent results and a first-class finish. Step 2. Existing finish. If you experience the paper plugging quickly, you need to determine if the existing finish is a polyurethane or shellac. To do this, protect your hands by using disposable waterproof gloves. Take a bottle of denatured alcohol and a soft cloth and wipe the floor in a small area to see if the finish softens. If it does, it is shellac. If there is a heavy coat of shellac on the floor, it can be chemically stripped to reduce the amount of sanding discs used to remove the finish. Follow the manufacturer's instructions for using denatured alcohol and chemical strippers on your floor for skin protection and ventilation. If you do not chemically strip your floor, you can sand the finish off. Keep in mind, during the sanding process, the temperature of the rotating discs raises enough due to friction to soften shellac. Move the machine quickly to reduce the amount of paper plugging. If the paper plugs or simply stops sanding, you must change your paper more often with a coarse grit such as 36 or 40 until the shellac is removed from the floor. Step 3. Sanding your floor. We recommend that you start with 36 or 40 grit sandpaper to level the floor and to remove any imperfections, unevenness, ripples, or start-stop lines on a previously finished floor. Change discs when the paper appears dull. This may occur after sanding for approximately 15 minutes. One pass over the entire floor and you will be able to identify these areas and know how much you will have to sand to level your floor. The U-Sand does not need to be moved quickly. It can be moved slowly, which allows the machine to do the work for you. The U-Sand is unlike the drum sander, which will damage a floor if it is moved too slowly or kept in one place. Continue sanding using progressively higher grits. Sand the floor completely. Periodically check the sanding discs to make sure they are clean and effective. When you have sanded the last area of the floor with the finest grit you are using, Lightly re-sand the entire floor area without changing the sandpaper to ensure a more uniform floor surface. For a room that is 10 by 10, 100 square feet, you will need approximately 20 pieces, 5 changes, of 40 grit sandpaper. These may not totally remove all the imperfections, but going over the floor with 80 grit, approximately 2 changes or 8 pieces, and then 120 grit, approximately 2 changes or 8 pieces, will remove some material, thus removing the imperfections. Always make sure that you vacuum the floor between the different grits of sandpaper to prevent scratches from the coarser abrasive that may have fallen off and were not removed from the floor. Step 4. Wood filler. In some cases with older homes where the floors become loose and gaps appear between the boards, it may be to your advantage to fill these gaps using trowelable wood filler available at your local hardware store. This material can be applied to the entire floor or can be spot applied as necessary and then sanded with the rest of your floor. Step 5. Hand sanding. Corners and edges that the U-sand did not reach can be sanded with a hand sander or scraper. A paint scraper can be used for hard-to-reach places such as under radiators and in corners. Some hand sanding may be necessary in these remote places. Thoroughly check the floor for scratches or swirl marks left from the 36 or 40 grit sandpaper. The marks from the coarser paper should have been removed after sanding with the 80 and 120 grits. Cherry, maple, and white oak may require sanding with 180 grit for the best finish. At this point, the floor should become shiny and free of all scratches when inspected closely. Step 6. Vacuum. Thoroughly vacuum and then wipe the entire floor surface with a tack rag or cloth, dampening the cloth with mineral spirits or paint thinner available at your local hardware store to remove any remaining debris. Follow manufacturer's instructions for using mineral spirits or paint thinner for skin protection and ventilation. Step 7. Application of floor finish. Apply stain and/or polyurethane following manufacturer's instructions. Step 8. Buffing. If you would like to buff the floor between coats of polyurethane, we generally use the buffing pads after the first coat of polyurethane, per manufacturer's instructions. These pads are available where the U-sand is rented and come with an adapter to make them attach easier to the U-sand. After the first coat, it is easy to see where you buff the floor as the finish becomes dull after buffing. It is important to keep moving when buffing as the finish is generally very thin and can be rubbed through quickly. Generally, one pass is sufficient. Remember to remove the dust bag and empty it when you are finished buffing the floor. Do not reattach the dust bag to the unit. Leave the bag in an area away from flammable materials and away from your work area. Step 9. Returning the floor sander. Prior to returning the floor sander, unplug it from the outlet. Wrap the cord around the handle and leave the last abrasive discs used on the machine. Place the machine in your vehicle along with the dust bag separately from the machine and return it to the rental location. Vacuum thoroughly in tack cloth after buffing prior to applying the next coat of polyurethane. Then apply remaining coats of polyurethane as recommended by the manufacturer. Congratulations! With the use of the U-sand, you have successfully finished your hardwood floor.